CQ, 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 ZL2 CTM, ZL2 CTM calling CQ, 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 QRP, ZL2 Charlie Tango Mike, ZL2 CTM calling CQ, 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 QRP, and listening, over.
MLQ, PIQ.
Roger, ZL2, I think MLQ, Mike Lima Kilo. This is ZL2 Charlie Tango Mike. Did I get that right? Over.
Yeah, that's the Philadelphia QRP home station. Just twiddling the dial, and you came up on the 7300, so I popped over to my little Renko, and yeah, here's the call.
Oh, Roger, Roger. Well, thanks for coming back. This is the first contact actually on this little rig. A little homebrew rig that I just sort of finished up playing around with one iteration of a power amplifier. So I thought I would just put it on air and see if anybody was around. So thank you very much for coming back. Not quite sure if it worked before. The name here is Charlie and the QTH is in Wellington. And like I say, just a little homebrew QRP rig transmitting just on around 5 odd watts. So nothing too powerful, but just a little homebrew rig. I'll pass back to you. ZL2 MLK, ZL2 CTM. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, ZL2 MLQ, it's Quebec on the end of that.
Oh, QQ.
Yes, you're coming in here, yeah, 59.
That's good.
In the Manawatu, northern Manawatu. And yeah, nothing wrong with that signal.
Oh, perfect.
The band's pretty lousy at the moment, but no, that's a good signal you're putting out there. Guess what's my signal at the moment,
Yeah, sorry, ZL2 MLQ, ZL2 CTM. No, you're when you're coming through nice and strong, you're a good 5x9, and a little bit of fading back to 5x7, but generally speaking, a nice strong signal there. Name here is Charlie. I didn't catch yours, over.
Oh, it's Travis here, Travis.
Travis, okay. Oh, Roger, thanks, Travis. Hey, it's been an interesting day today. Sort of, I guess I started the morning at 2 AM getting shaken up with the earthquake, which was certainly interesting. As they say, long and strong. I certainly felt it down here in Wellington. And then just been playing around for the rest of the day with this little QRP rig, like I say, with the power amplifier. Seems to be going alright. It's nice and stable, but still got different ideas, but it's really good. So I see you're up in the northern Manawatu. At some stage of the game we wouldn't mind getting back to fielding, so that's one of our sort of long-term aims there. But at the moment sort of here in Wellington. I hope you've had a good day there, Travis. Back to you.
Yeah, it's been a reasonably good day. Yeah, quite mild, and of course got a small farm up the Bahana Valley, and a few bits in the fielding is know where that is. But yeah, we're quite dry. Had 10 mils yesterday, first 10 mils for, first rain for about 3 weeks, I suppose. So, yeah, we're looking for a bit more, naturally. And so we're just hoping that the weekend brings some. Well, yeah, looking at the forecast, Sunday looks pretty positive. So, no, that'd be good if we could get that. But no, I've just been doing a few odd jobs here.
Just get forward, I'll explain the circuit after this.
Playing around with an antenna I'm working on, which is random antenna here. It's working alright. Well, half-by I suppose. I'm not getting the signal that I should be getting out of what I normally get from my dipole, my fan dipole. So yeah, it's all good fun and experimenting. And I've got plenty of room here, so that's why I thought I'd try a long wire instead. So, it's probably too long. I have to play around and try and measure the thing. It's about 150 metres.
Oh, wow.
So I just sort of banged it up and got a guy who put it over some pine trees for me with his surfcaster and tied off the other end to another shed I had, and yeah, maybe I should have had a more accurate measurement on it, but yeah, it gives me something to do, and I'm just new to this game. I've only been a hand since August.
Oh wow, August.
And Yeah, with branch 20, but yeah, lots of room, lots of room. When you get your ticket, but as they say, you're only starting to learn. Back to you.
Yeah, Roger, Travis. Yeah, no problems at all. Gosh, that's a really long antenna there. That's huge. Lucky you've got the space for it. I'm sort of at the, I guess, the outskirts of town, well, near the central town, and I've got the ability to put up a half-wave dipole for 80 metres. So it's not quite straight legs, but kinked, but it's good enough. It's close enough for the property I've got here. But no, it's the great thing about the hobby. You know, you've got so many different ways you can go, either home brewing or creating your antennas, or just playing around with all the different types of modes and that. So the world's your oyster in terms of variety and that. It's whatever cranks your boat, so to speak, or floats your boat. But that's good. That's really good. Yeah, Bahungana Valley, know that well. Spent many a time with the kids camping up at Total Reserve up the far end. Yeah, very, very nice valley. I could see ourselves maybe doing a holiday home in there at some stage of the game. Very, very nice valley, so I certainly remember that very well. Okay, Dake, well I won't hold you up too much. There's a couple of more things I want to play around with here. But thank you very much for coming back. I really appreciate that, Travis. And good to hear that the signal is going out well, which is good. I don't know if I mentioned this is a homebrew from first principles, so not a kit set, just sort of trying to start from scratch and try and understand the various circuits and how they work and do the math, so to speak. And the whole reason for doing it and putting it up online is to try and encourage others to give it a go too. I certainly do not profess to be an expert in any way, shape or form of this, but I certainly enjoy the homebrew aspects and getting stuff out there. So that's the whole motivation for me. And if others get the same enjoyment, hey, that's fantastic. Okay, Dake, well I will I'll leave you there. And like I say, thanks very much for coming back, and no doubt we will certainly work you again. ZL2 MLQ, ZL2 CTM.
Yeah, ZL2 CDM, ZL2 MLQ. Look, I missed your Christian name there. It's a bit stupid of me, but I should have said before. But yeah, I must get that, thank you.
Yeah, the name is Charlie. Charlie as in Charlie Horse, over.
Yep, got that, Charlie. Yeah, nice to make your acquaintance, and if they come up on their they've got a night QRP on a Thursday night at about 8 o'clock, I think it is, 8:30, and yep. Of course Wayne is just over the hill from me in Daddyworth, so and he spends a lot of time in the hills, so yeah, I've got quite interested in the road power, and I've got a hut at the back of my property, and I've got an antenna set up there. I'll take my little rolling car up there, and yeah, have a lot of fun. All right, Charlie, won't hold it. We'll say au revoir, and ZL2 CTM and ZL2 MLQ 73.
Yeah, Roger, Travis. Yeah, have a great night, and thanks for coming back. Yeah, I know Wayne well, and we've worked a few times now with the QRP rigs. He certainly gets out a lot. I'm very, very envious of him. Be nice to get out a little bit more often than I can. Anyway, you have a great night, and we will certainly work again. And like I say, I'm 3690, so take care, and we'll see you soon. ZL2 Charlie Tango Mike clear. Cheers.
Cheers. Good night.
Ah, that's really good. Perfect. Happy with that. A couple of other signals around. I might just have a bit of a tune around and see if we can hear, and then I'll go through and have a look at the circuit. That's a bit way down the weeds. Okay, I'm going to quickly turn this off. I'm tempted to, but I won't. Okay, no. Let's turn that down, and let's just have a quick look at what I've done. Sorry to have to sit through 10 minutes of me yabbering, but I did say fast forward. Okay, so What I have been playing around with since the last video is the transmit side and putting some thought into that. So since the last video I've inserted this bandpass filter after the last mixer. Just make sure we can sort of see it over there. And the whole idea of that is I just want to make sure that I'm not amplifying the unwanted products coming out of that last mixer. So all I want is the desired transmit frequency which is coming out of that. Exactly the same configuration as the incoming bandpass filter. Not trying to do any kind of fancy switching to share the two, just decided to make up a second one to keep it simple. Now before I go any further, in keeping with the spirit of trying to make this as simple as possible using readily available parts and the like, I've sort of kept that theme going through the sort of first experiment with the amplifier chain. So coming out of that bandpass filter is just a small attenuator there, just a few dB just to present a nice clean 50 ohms to the driver here. That driver is two-stage, and I'll go through the circuit after this. It's a 3904 for the first stage, running at 30 milliamps, and then I've got a 2N2219A, which I was running at around 50 milliamps. No, at this stage, and you'll see why in the circuit, I'm just basically using an RFC and dumping all of that RF without any kind of impedance matching straight into the IRF 510. Again, why the RF 510? For me, quick and easy and simple, easy to get hold of. You know, the best component? No, definitely not, but hey, it works. Right, so that's what that is there, and again we'll go through the circuit. It's basically just coming in through a 10 ohm resistor just to knock back any instability. Not that I had it, but I just decided to put it in just for a start, and then through a 100 nanofarad capacitor coupled into the gate of the RF 510. Also coming through a 51 ohm resistor is the biasing voltage. So at the moment the drain is got applied to it through an RFC 24 volts. So if you recall, I'm using that 24 volt laptop power supply to power this whole radio here. So I'm taking that hot 24 volts onto the drain, and then for the biasing, to actually bias into conduction, using a 5 volt regulator. So its input is the 12 volt transmit. So on the key down, 12 volt transmit, voltage gets applied to the 5 volt regulator. That goes into a 10 turn helipot, which allows me then to fine tune the voltage being applied to the gate to get a quiescent current of 100 milliamps through that, to basically bias into class AB. So that was the setup with that, and then the output of that just going through the low pass filter, same design as I've been using in the past. I'm going to have another look at that because it was quite rightly pointed out, and I couldn't honestly find where I had that original circuit from. The values as they stand actually has a minus 3D point at about 4.8, 4.9 megahertz as opposed to 4 megahertz. For me down here at the 80 meter band, that's fine. It's still knocking back any second harmonic and above, so it certainly cleans up the signal should there be any instabilities just fine. Through the transmit TR switch, the second pole, and out the antenna. So let me just swing this around just a little bit and zoom out, if it's not already zoomed out. It is. So these circuits here are not finalized. It was just today playing around, so this is just an opportunity video just to do, I guess, a bit of a status update on playing around. So my thinking for, maybe I'll just have to catch two things at once here. So my thinking for the driver was to get about half a watt out there to feed into the IRF 510. Now I've put some thought into this, not necessarily here, but since playing around today, and I want to do another driver that's more looking to drive a voltage load. So the RF 510 is a voltage controlled device on the gate as opposed to a current controlled device such as a BJT or something similar. this amplifier here, of a similar one I've used before, I think's better set up for a current controlled load as opposed to, like I say, voltage. Anyway, right or wrong, this is what I played around with. So there's two stages, as I mentioned before, a 3904 and a 2219A. So the 2N3904 having a quiescent current of 30 milliamps through that. I haven't picked it up here. Again, this is not a finalized diagram. It's sitting on the 12 volts, or actually 13.8 for this rig, 13.8 volt transmit for that. The values for RE, R1 and R2 are, as we've seen in previous calculations, so no need to go through that again. Exactly the same setup. You'll notice here that my initial thinking was to have this stage here bypassed to get maximum gain. While that worked okay and was fine, I decided to knock that back, and you can't quite see it down there, but that 100 nanofarad bypass capacitor down there, its ground leg has actually been lifted. So for all intents and purposes, that's out of circuit, and we've got a fair amount of negative feedback on that 3904. The second part of that particular driver there is the 2219A. My thinking there was to not have the emitter resistor bypassed. As I did for that Go QRP rig, I was going to find the value of R2, and then for the value of R1 I was going to use a variable pot there to tweak that to get my 50 milliamps exactly spot on. That was my initial thinking. In the end I actually didn't bother doing that. I just worked out what that value should be and threw it at the circuit. My initial thinking was, and I think I mentioned it before, that the load that I wanted this to see using VCC squared over 2 times power out, substituting in our known values, was about 190 ohms. What I thought I'd just try for a start, as I've mentioned over here, and this is not refined, this is just straight off the circuit. Saw it was putting out a reasonable amount of power and thought I'd just get on air and see how it went actually with the live antenna. So at the moment, as I mentioned before, got a 10 turn RFC, that one just there, so that's 10 turns on an FT37-43, and just dumping all of that RF straight through the 100 nanofarad capacitor through to the RF510 with no thought at this stage about impedance matching. So nothing else to talk about on that one. So the RF510 stage, again, my initial thinking was, as I just spoke about before, pretty simple, just the 510 here with the source directly connected to earth, and the input signal coming through a 10 ohm resistor, 100 nanofarad capacitor onto the gate. In terms of biasing this so it's into class AB, just that 12 volt transmit through the 7805 through that trim pot, and then just having that DC through a 51 ohm resistor. The thinking there was with a high input impedance here, looking into the gate, we're seeing, we'll ignore the 10 ohms, but we're essentially seeing at this point here 51 ohms in parallel with a high impedance, because this side here is shorted to earth through that 100 nanofarad capacitor. So for all intents and purposes from an AC point of view, this point here is sitting at earth. So right or wrong, I was thinking if you're looking in here, you'd be seeing roughly 51 ohms. Now I note that doesn't match the 190 odd ohms I wanted before, but like I say, this was just purely playing around and just having a bit of a fiddle, so to speak. On the output side of the 510, 4-to-1 bifilar wound transformer, as I just noted down here, just 10 turns on a slightly larger core, so I elected to go for the FT50-43s for both the 4-to-1 transformer here and the RFC. The RFC is just 10 turns on the same core. Going through the 50 ohm low pass filter and out the antenna. So that was the thinking for the RF510. And as I just mentioned before, just trying to keep the parts as simple as possible. So yeah, so somebody asked, in fact, I'm just going to mention before, somebody asked if I was using an amplified antenna, and the answer is no. Sorry, again, amplified speaker. The answer is no. So up there is the speaker. It's just a wooden box with an unamplified speaker inside. So nothing special. Just an old speaker box I've had for a long time. but sort of gives quite a nice mellow sound, and that LM380 combined with the 5534 for the audio amplifier certainly drives it well, which is good. So, rightio, what else I want to cover off? Oh yes, that's right. So in terms of the RF510 over there, what I was thinking about doing, and again, I've said many times, I'm going to say it again, please don't take any of these videos as gospel, please don't take them as a tutorial, because that's certainly not the case. These are very much just a video log of what I've been playing with, and as I've said many times, the whole idea of doing it in the first place is to try and encourage others to give it a go too, and just to play around. Now, my thinking was the RF510 is a voltage controlled device, so I'm going to have a play around if I get time, replacing this driver stage here with something a little more simpler. I've got 24 volts available from that little battery pack, so I was thinking about just using again a 2N3904, which will cope with a maximum collector emitter voltage of 40 volts, so I'm well within that. Just a simple amplifier, 24 volts, RFC, dump the output to here, and then I'll feed that straight into the RF510. Now, my thinking is I might play around with the transformer here. My thinking, again, right or wrong, and I'm not an expert into this, is because the 510 is a voltage controlled device, it's, as opposed to current, I'm not necessarily looking for maximum power transfer, I'm just looking for a good strong voltage to drive that gate. There will be some current to drive the input capacitance, but I think I'm more going to fiddle around with the voltage side of the house. So that's what I'm thinking, and I guess the whole idea of this is to experiment and to play around, and it either work or it won't work. So it's just an itch that I want to scratch and have a bit of a play with. But at the moment, one could argue that the radio as it stands, sorry, it's getting a bit dark in here. Let me just flick that on. It may or may not help. The radio as it sounds, say again, the radio as it stands, I think it's fine. It's, you know, I think it's keeping to the spirit of cheap and cheerful and no exotic parts. I don't count the SI5351 board there at $2 exotic, nor the simple LCD there or the Arduino, not at all. And certainly when you compare that with building, say, a high quality, low drift analog VFO, I think for a homebrew point of view and for playing around with homebrew radios, you really can't go wrong with at least experimenting and playing with the SI5351 breakout boards there. It's just one less variable to play around with when you're playing around with these sorts of things. That's my thinking anyway. So there you go. So I'm going to say 73 there. It's sort of going on, what's the time now? 8 o'clock at night here, so sun's starting to go down. A few more people coming on the radio, so I might do a few more contacts later on. And like I say, shift my attention, if I can, to playing around with a different driver. We'll see if we can get that achieved. Okay, 73 all, and we will catch you next time. Cheers all.
I'm not really sure. I did take time to fill.
Just like the other day, I'm just going to add on a few, just scanning around the band.
Having a little bit of fun and games. Yep. We're starting to wonder whether the dose.
It's only just a few more people coming on board now. I think 380 something might be one. That's the end of the band there. A bit quiet here.
Under 40, not treating us very kindly, is it? Yes, well, it's a bit cloudy here now. It hasn't rained all day though, it's been a great day. So, yeah.
Honestly, if it's such a simple rig, you can't,
Yeah, the paint's got
not a lot of...
quite a bit done there, Richard, so that's all good. Yep, I've been...
Okay, what else we got? Let's go down a bit.
It's very critical.
Yeah, thanks, Graeme, and good evening there, 01 TRC, I think it was. Bit noisy in the fielding. You're
They might have been overworked or sleeping on the job, but we're talking here about stuff that costs only a couple of dollars. You wouldn't want to buy the components and try to put it yourself together.
Birdie there. Okay, I think I've gone on long enough here, so let's just.
yeah, like it wasn't going to rain again, so but anyway, it's stopped now, and of course the sun has set.
There's a weak one there, way down the weeds. Okay, right, 73. See you soon.